As everything in life, the DCEU, as we know it, started with Marvel. Marvel did not reinvent the wheel, but it did make it run faster than ever before. DC pioneered the comic book cinema since Christopher Reeve's Superman or Tim Burton's Batman. When the true Marvel-DC competition started, the two already showed the clear distinctions between the studios. Marvel released its great bet, Iron Man, with an alcoholic womanizer as a superhero, something that would be hard to see now in the more Disney-fied Marvel studios. And DC made history with The Dark Knight, an adult realistic thriller, like never seen before in this scale of superhero movie. Marvel continued its journey, although with a few stumbles, consolidating its space in the market. But while Marvel kept growing, DC had an existential crisis, especially because Warner Bros. Considered itself an artistic studio, with invaluable contributions to the history of cinema. Dark Knight had won the Oscar for Heath Ledger, and they wouldn't want to simply copy the Marvel model, although its results were exactly what Warner wanted. Warner tried to launch its DC universe with the cartoonish Green Lantern that failed miserably with fans and critics. Since then, the path for Warner was clear. Marvel would make childish and fun movies, DC would make adult, heavy, and profound movies that would elevate the genre to an artistic level. As Nolan didn't seem interested in doing superhero movies anymore, the second best option was clearly Zack Snyder. After adapting with limited success on a story of incredible importance to the history of comic books, Watchmen, a task few directors would take on, Snyder, with his tendency to stories with heavy subject matter on morality and extraordinary talent to visual spectacle, was the perfect choice to launch the new DC universe with a strong artistic vision. The mission of the DCEU was to subvert the genre that had become stale and predictable, and that to this day still is. In Man of Steel, the Superman that saves the day in a miraculous idealistic way became a realistic science fiction with environmental messages and an unusual toll on the hero. Superman saves humanity, but he takes the life of the only species like himself in the world. Although the reception to Man of Steel was lukewarm, Warner was still heavily invested in Snyder's vision, although requesting more ingredients in the story, which culminated in Batman v Superman. The second movie in the universe expanded it exponentially. There was not only Batman and Alfred, but the Joker, Flash, Lex Luthor, Aquaman, Cyborg, and an unforgettable appearance by Wonder Woman. Those were the heroes that Warner wanted to see, but the way Snyder used them and reinvented them were quite unpredictable. Lex Luthor was no longer a middle-aged bald man, but a postmodern magnate. The worst instincts of Facebook and Apple became the Lex Corp, along with a performance that was as magnetic as it was polarized from Jesse Eisenberg, which I actually loved. Wonder Woman was no longer sexualized or two-dimensional, but a figure that was cold, mysterious, and tragic, and would gain more focus later on. Superman had no reasons to smile in this cynical and atmospheric world. Constantly tested by the media and the public, Superman had no voice in his own movie. And most controversially of all, Batman was not the idyllic dark hero that the Nolan fans wanted, but a tormented, bloodlust, and murderous vigilante, inspired by the darker pages of The Dark Knight Returns. Snyder's plan was to bring together these characters in different stages of life. A baby Superman, an elderly Batman, and a centenary Wonder Woman, each of them in the lowest moment in their journeys, rising back up and becoming the Justice League. While the public and critics further refused Snyder's ideas, Suicide Squad actually demonstrated the original intention of Warner, a movie in which the heroes are admittedly villains, immoral, selfish, and three-dimensional. Suicide Squad showed a Gotham that was not dark or decrepit, but full of color and life. And there lied the irony of that world. The villains had a more gratifying life than the heroes that live in constant trauma. Although the execution of Suicide Squad was less than ideal, it should be commended for what it symbolized. Ideas that were maybe more concisely explored in Deadpool. Wonder Woman was a rare victory for DC at the time. Although more colorful and with a more traditional screenplay, Wonder Woman embraced themes of war, compassion, and human terror. Wonder Woman was not a movie, it was a film. The colors had a narrative purpose, the jokes were organic, the story was realistic, or as realistic as one can be in this genre, not to mention the cultural relevance of the female representation in the superhero movies. Some people want a realistic representation of a woman, some people want to see a woman below men, some people want to see women above men, and some people don't want to see female characters at all. It was incredibly difficult to please everyone, and Wonder Woman did it as well balanced as I can imagine. After Wonder Woman, the DCEU became more sparse, more light, more simple. Warner accepted its defeat, and since then created products that, although still with artistic vision, were more in line with the conventional market. But it's not rare to see them trying something outside the box, like Joker or Birds of Prey, which still have the spirit of experimentation and unconventional storytelling, with variable degrees of success. Too many DC failed, which I think is more due to the expectations of the public and the rejection of the critics. The numbers themselves don't seem to say so. To me, regardless of the consensus, the DCEU was and still is a fascinating phenomenon to witness.